Talks House Rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
Hey, welcome back to AV Tech Talks. It's Monday and it's 7 p.m. Eastern, so here we are. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Jef Kethley about Sienna. So, we've had Jef on a number of times. He's been a regular panelist. He's also presented, and, he's talked about Sienna in the past, but today we're actually going to really dive into it. We've never done a whole episode on it. So I'm super excited because Sienna is just such a powerful tool. It's super modular and gives you a ton of control, whether you're doing stuff on the ground or in the cloud. Really, just this is going to be a pretty good episode. So if you've got friends, you should tell them to come join us. They don't want to miss this because this is definitely worth the price of admission. Which we keep extremely low, but the information is going to be invaluable. So, just quick question: anybody out here on the panel, by a show of hands, had a chance to use Sienna?
No, but I've seen it in action, and it is amazing.
Jeff's the only one that knows how to work it, isn't he? The only guy that actually uses it and knows how to make it work.
I'm not the only one, but there's a small crew. Let me put it that way. But we're growing. But it's growing.
We're here to learn with everyone else today.
Yep.
So Omar, when you saw it in action, what was it doing? What was going on?
I mean, it was Jef doing it, so it's really we're going to talk about it right now.
Okay.
That's the most I've ever seen it. I've only seen Jef using it. But a big shout out right here to Jonathan McDougall. I've been looking forward to this episode. So no pressure there, Jef.
Yeah, actually, I saw him share the information about this episode before I got it out today. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for that support. So I guess, you know what, why don't we just dive into it? Because I know Jef can go on about Sienna. He's got a wealth of information. So Jef, why don't you take it away for us?
Sounds great, guys. It's always a pleasure to be here, and glad I could make it in, even with the flat tires that I had on the way here. Nothing like driving across the country and hauling a car behind the truck and losing a tire twice. Luckily, I had 4, so I made it. And now we're here, and so glad I had just enough time to turn it all on and prep it, and it's pretty easy to move forward. Really is, as we get started, kind of lumped together, you said Sienna. Okay, so Sienna is the manufacturer or the writer behind all the software, but it's not, the software itself is not Sienna. So there's multiple versions of pieces of software from Sienna. They primarily develop for the Mac and the Unix slash Linux platforms. So that's where the majority of their software is. If you go to sienna.tv, that's their simple place to find all their information, all the different, they have a very good tie-in with new tech and the NDI. So if you're in the NDI workflow, that's where Sienna really ties in very well. It allows you to be modular. It allows you to bring in things that are, I would just say, maybe more featured than the free tools that are in NDI tools. So that is definitely a good part of their products. And also, as I said before, they're very Mac centric. So even though I'm friends with a lot of people that use Macs, I don't hold it against them, Omar, but we're still trying to find that there's still people out there that are holdouts and think that Mac should be used in live production. So it's great. And it honestly goes, it works really well. And their tools for the Mac are fantastic. So I'm going to be looking up because I have I'm going to be playing an Ed because I'm looking up because my 24-inch monitor that does 1920 by 1080 is above my camera, and it really bugs me to be looking up all the time because I'm seeing myself. But I just want to let you know I'm not like spacing out. Okay, so I'm looking at that monitor, so I'm going to kind of lean back a little bit. If I need to turn up the audio or something, just let me know. So let me try sharing this real quick, Ed, and though our test went fantastic, I think we should go ahead and share that screen. It is going to be a 1920 by 1080, so hopefully came through.
Looks that way.
I lost my monitors. All right, let me get my little monitors over here moved around. I've got one of the widescreen monitors down on my desk, so it makes it a little bit easier to see bigger projects. And I'll show you why in just a little bit. Okay, so this is a Sienna infrastructure here. This is kind of like a great way to get started. There's the processing engine, which is effectively a processing engine is more or less a rack of glue. So it's an open gear rack. If you equate that to the everyday world, an engineering rack that allows you to take a signal in and send it somewhere else and do all kinds of stuff in the middle, whatever you want to do. So that could be de-embedding audio, embedding audio, changing video tracks, affecting that video in multiple ways, affecting the audio in multiple ways. And that is basically the idea behind the processing engine. So that's the processing engine. Then on the other side of the processing engine is the router. So that's their NDI router, which allows you to do multiple NDI sources in and out. And it allows you to easily organize what you need as far as signal flow, to be able to send to either multiple destinations at once, or to basically make it easier for you to select destinations by button presses versus having to remember what the name of the NDI source is. So you can label them to be whatever you want them to be, make it as simple and dead easy as anybody that could operate a push button router that can read a label. Granted, they can read a destination and read a source, they could patch a router. And you could also tie that router into either Blackmagic hardware or anything that uses the ProBell actual, like Utah Scientific is one of the others, and a couple other hardware boxes that allow you to press them. And then a good old Stream Deck. So Stream Deck works also to be able to patch in and call up different route patches, because with the router you also have the ability to do salvos, which are like macros. So you can do multiple actions all at once. It's a lifesaver. It really is. Once you understand how to use the router, and just like a normal router in a truck or in a studio environment, a router is 100% a nice tool to master because it'll make your life much easier. So looking over on the Sienna project here, as you see on their website, we have on the left side our ingest side. On the right side we have the social CDNs, the outputs, the TCPs, SMPTE 2110, it does that also. Sienna Link, NDI, full rate NDI HX2, SRT is another part of in and out. It's all modules that are within the processing engine. Then on our other side of things is like, depending on where you need to put it, of course, that could be on-prem or on-premise or in the cloud. So we're going to kind of talk about both a little bit today, but most of mine is in the cloud because that's where I usually operate. Most of our master controls are in the cloud. So that's kind of where we're at. So as you see with, as we click into this will bring us into the processing engine here. It is ambiguous about as far as what it wants to use. It doesn't care. It's agnostic about whether or not it wants to be on the Amazon Web Services, Alibaba Cloud, even, which of course other areas of the world are using that, Azure and Google and Tencent, especially big in the Asia market. And then it embraces SR. It is a partner with SRT and also RIST and now in recent AWS CDI. So the CDI is a full. It's the closest thing to SMPTE 2110 in the cloud infrastructure, and AWS is pushing that to be a solution to be able to bring full uncompressed video back and forth across their platform in their cloud infrastructure. And then as far as modules and what's available in it, I'll just quickly click over here and you can kind of see where the levels are. There's 3 different levels: standard, plus, and advanced. And so as we start out, you can see there's proc amps. So you can read this. I'm not going to read it to you, but there's quite a few. And that's just at Sienna.tv or Sienna-tv.com under new site and products. So under the processing engine. So you can see all the different ones that come through there. And then the plus is where it gets really fun. So the standard module gets you a lot of places. Every one of the standard modules we've installed and supported. Next week, they called and said, okay, we want the plus. We realize how great this is. We want to go ahead and do the plus and get as much as we can out of this. So on the plus, you get more multi-viewers, you get more flexible multi-viewers and more features in those like tallies, audio meters, and labels. That is a big part of where the processing engine started from, was being able to use multiple NDI sources and create multi-viewers to whatever the needs are for a broadcast situation. There's a great matrix audio mixer in there to be able to take audio from sources to sources. There is a small vision mixer built into it, so we'll get into that a little bit closer too. And then as far as the SRT, you have the ability to go NDI to SRT, SRT to NDI. So that depends on which pathway you need to go. And also in the advanced, you also get ArtNet, DMX transport over that, which is quite nice for those that are doing even more. So we can turn on the lighting in the studio from offsite. And it's all going through the controls, and you can macro a lot of those things together too. And those all going through the controls in the processing engine. Vector scope, waveform, all the stuff that you would normally need. But the big part that's in, and that we'll talk quite a bit about today, is the Sienna Unite. And that is their solution for a web-based contribution guest system. So it is more than, it's not WebRTC, it's using WebSockets and it's using their own proprietary protocols, but it is not WebRTC. So here's one of the things that WebRTC will start at the bottom at 360, at 360p, and then try to work its way up. With Unite, we can set it as like, I want 720p. So when my resolution is going to come in and say at 720p the whole time, or I want 1080p at the whole time. That's all I want. You can take my frame rate down, that's fine, but my resolution is going to stay the same. And that's something we always fight with, say, for instance, WebRTC solutions like that vMix uses, or even the ones at MediaLux. So the WebRTC might be fluctuating up and down. That'll break records. It causes all kind of havoc in a production workflow. Sienna has said, I'm going to stay with this resolution the whole time. Besides stopping at 1080p, it doesn't. It also stops at 2160p. So if you want to do 4K through the Unite engine, it can do it. And we've tested it and it works if your camera can support it. Now, of course, you got to have a 4K workflow that does support it. Your capture card has to support it, and it is browser based. So there's no app to install. You can white label your browser interface. So if you don't want to have other things there, like for instance, there's a lot of people ask about that for vMix Call. If you don't want it to be branded with anything else but yourself, you can create a website and embed those iframes into it. And we'll get to that a little bit later. So then other things that are included in the Plus version is the PTZ joystick, which is a remote capability of using their module to control offsite NDI controllable or Visca controllable PTZs, which is quite nice for just having basic presets, recalls, and testing, of course, too. So those are some of the bigger modules that are in there. And then in the advanced, that's where it's kind of more targeted at the on-prem type of broadcast facility, because it allows you to do, it has an IRD module for interfacing with transport streams and more broadcast interfaces. And then it has the AWS CDI integration too. So that's a big jump. And then also there are a couple other things like the transport stream analyzer and visualizer, which is quite fun tool to play with. And also the ability to do UDP transports, and also with their Reflect UDP reflector, it allows you to take transports and send those out unicast or multicast. I know this is a lot of jargon in this. A big part of it is allows you to relay 2022/7, which is very rare. So that top advanced is 100% dedicated or directed at the very particular broadcast market. So that's kind of where we're stopped there. So that's kind of the basics behind processing engine. Ed, let's take a second and I'll take a breath, and maybe we could take a couple questions if we have any.
Yeah, so I'll jump in with one real quick, and then Andrew, I saw your hand raised. So the first one I got from you is on the Zoom side, is from Jesse Mills. He says, "Howdy, Jeff. Can you demonstrate how Sienna router works as far as the setup? I use several Apple TVs with the Sienna TV app and KiloView NDI encoders, decoders. That would be great to address through an iPad or the like."
Sure. Yeah, that's actually very easy, Jesse. So let's just dive into the router real quick. All right, so the router is, like I said, very similar to anybody that's used a broadcast router. You have destinations and sources. So you select your destination of where you want it to go, and then you pick the source that you want to send to it. Now, as far as the ability to send to multiple places, one thing you have to understand is the way this is written is you're still pulling from the original source. So the NDI stream itself comes from the original source, not from the router itself. So you have to make that disconnection. In a normal studio situation, you would use a lot of times we would use a router as a distribution amplifier. So we would have everything routed into the router, everything's plugged into the router, and then all the outputs, wherever we want to send it, I could take, for instance, and replay, for instance, I would have channel 1 or camera 1 going into the switcher, into the replay 1, replay 2, and that basically has 3 outputs. So it's not taking, and it's doing all that processing inside the one router. In NDI router, it is actually pulling from the source. So if my camera 1 is on an NDI box, say for instance a KiloView or a Spark or something small like that, there's only X amount of bandwidth that box will be able to put out. So you have to kind of keep those things in mind. So a box like that may have some of them even have a 100 megabit connection. That's not going to help you a lot. But in HX world, that's enough. But you would have, say, a gigabit connection on there. That gigabit connection should be able to take in or send out up to 4 or up to 6, maybe 7 full rate NDIs at 150 megabits per second. But the processor also has to support that. So in those little boxes, those little task boxes like that, the throwdown boxes, the processor doesn't always. So you have to keep that in mind. It's not a perfect solution for everything, but there are other ways to come around that. When you go into the processing engine, allows you to create those sources, because everything inside the processing engine is done as NDI in and out. So if you route it through as a destination into the processing engine and then come out of the processing engine, you're using the processing engine to create as many of those streams as you want. So you would have one stream coming from the box going into the processing engine, then out of the processing engine into however many destinations you need to do. So that is just something you have to keep in mind when you're using NDI router. You still have to be cognizant of what is you're pulling from. Now that could be a computer, that could be a Spark or an IO box like the KiloView or the Bird Dog, but that's what you have to kind of keep in mind. So we'll kind of look at some of the other things that allows you to do, that you are allowed to do in the NDI router. I just want to make sure you understand it's not a perfect pill for everything, but it does have some of those capabilities as long as your network is kept in mind. Salvos are one of the things that we find a lot of times help save our bacon. So if we are bringing up multiple streams for our mega zoom type events that we do, as we're bringing up multiple streams, and that means we might have a live view box, an SRT box, we might have a NDI Cloud, which is another product from Sienna, and those are all uplinking into our cloud infrastructure. So we have 3 different paths going in. Well, I will write a salvo to pick from any of those sources to be able to send it to all the outputs. And so the outputs themselves are actually destinations or computers. So those are our virtual computers that are running Zoom meetings. And that allows us to have a quick fallback of, oh crap, we lost the hard line. Okay, click 2 clicks with a salvo, and you basically have to drop down and you say click and then okay. And then it'll rewrite every one of the outputs that are going into the new input. So that allows us to have a very quick and easy backup, and that's also something we put on our stream decks. So it's all mappable in that aspect. And if we wanted to have something simple, if I wanted to give someone, say for instance, I'm trying to find something really simple. All right, here, this was one that we did. So we had just 5 different destinations, and then we had multiple inputs, and this allowed us to very quickly move around our inputs and outputs. This is a very simple one, like doing exactly what I said. So I have an output, a single output that all of the Zoom machines or the Zoom meetings are feeding off of, and then I just pick which one of the inputs I want to go to. The destination preview there, it is giving me an actual preview of what's happening. So all I do is select the destination, and then I pick which one I want to bring it from. That's simple and easy. Inside the Sienna, it is completely on the NDI router, it is completely configurable. Right now I have mine set to only 200 by 200. It does have a limit of number of inputs and outputs though. So keep this in mind. You can only do 4096 by 4096. So you have to keep things kind of calm a little bit.
Is that all? I mean,
yeah. Sorry. I know it's just people hear that and they're like, oh, that's it. Yeah. But that said, I never in my wildest dreams thought we would be at some of the places. A couple of my clients, one of them in Dubai, we started him out at 250 by 250, and we said, hey, we're kind of hitting the limit on this. And it's always, when you're dealing with a router, it seems like it's always the destinations. That's what you always end up with. That's where you run out because you want to send things to multiple places. So whenever we started talking about it, what his needs were and things like that, I was like, okay, well, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and bump you up to 500 by 500? Or it's like 250 by 500. And he's like, okay, that's fine. A week later, he's like, I need to move it up again. And it's like, okay, so let's move it up again. And it literally is just changing that number. It's as simple as it is. And then go back and do a lot of labeling so you know where things are, just like you should in a normal studio. So whenever we got to call the last one, I was like, well, how many sources using? Like 484. I was like, okay, so let's go. How far do you want to go? It's like, well, let's double it. The last show he did, he used over 960 channel outputs. So, and he's running like 60 different, 50 or 60 different virtual machines in his cloud infrastructure. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but it was all in mind, so it was all pragmatic about how he was trying to make it all work. And it ended up turning out to make it just that much easier because now he can hand somebody this simple little stream deck and they could control a massive amount of information without necessarily having to go deep inside a router and know where your sources are. It's like, press this button if it all goes bad. And so that's a pretty powerful thing, and that's where the technology helps. So like something like this that I'm looking at here, this is one of our mega zoom setups. So we had 100 machines. So from router 1 to router 100, or 100 machines. Those were all running, and then we added actually in all our inputs into our VisVector, another 25 machines. The one that's QC return right here, that is actually going through the processing engine, and that is a output back down to our desk here, which creates an NDI source everywhere on our local network in the MCR, so that we could actually monitor what's coming out. So anytime on this QC return, if I wanted to look at my, say the VM program right here, the Warrior VM program, that's the output of the visual mixer. Or if I wanted to look at the vision mixing program out, it's a different one, but that's that. Or if I wanted to look directly at my this LS1 test, that is my live view. So I could look directly to any of those sources, sending it out to my QC return. So the same thing could happen if I did start doing this to help us in spot checking. So 125 rooms or 125 meetings, it's tough to monitor all that, you can imagine. So we have 16 monitors set up, 16 4K monitors set up, a big, huge monitor wall. We can see them all, but we can't hear them all. And we're just using TeamViewer to get into each one of those virtual machines. But by using the router, we could take that QC return, and then on each one of those machines, we're using NDI scan converter also. So we could actually hear the audio and the video from the machine itself. And that was a great, really, we could spot check like probably 100 times faster than what we were doing if you had to actually log into every single Zoom one at a time. So that was kind of one of a big thing that we discovered in our workflow that helped a considerable amount. So that's kind of how the differences are between what's all about in the router. It's really pretty simple as far as setting it up. Like I showed you here, your preferences, you set how big you want it, your ins and the outs, and then you go into your sources and you just link those sources. You see the ones that are undefined aren't linked. So if I click on it, then I just look on, these are all the NDI sources that are hitting my network right now. So I just scroll through there and I pick up and say, oh, I want to have sources going to be VisVector 1 because it's creating an NDI source. I'll name it a short name and that's it. And now I have my source. Then if I want to go to my destinations, I could label those destinations just to help make more sense. So this is what you see in the other devices that you're connecting into your NDI workflow. This is the name you see. So like I have, it'll say router 151 guest 1. So I know that output is also in a panel. So if I go configure panels, find one. So there it is. So 151 guest 1, guest 2, guest 3. So depending on which one of these I actually have selected on that, and I have to remember which one it is, contribution, that's it. So those are checked. Okay, so those will show up. Now, if I check this next one, this 167, it'll show up also. So when I go back into my user panels and contribution, see there's that router 167 that just showed up. Simple as that. So I can customize as long and give that person that's operating as large or small a section of that as I wanted to. And it, by the way, it is password protected. So you don't have to worry about you can give control to people, and I also can give you just that one panel. So you can't see the rest of my panels that are running other shows. So it gives you a lot of flexibility within that. But this is one of those that I was doing. So my guests coming in, I have my VisVector, which is my switcher of choice. And then I have guest 1 going into channel 1. And what I have in my VisVector, I have that number, the source I have for channel 2 in the VisVector is VisVector 2 off my router. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm actually renaming it so I don't go to the source like, or with whether it's VisVector or vMix, whatever. I'm not looking at the computer that's the source. I'm looking at the router name. And then that gives me that flexibility to be able to point whatever I want into that with just a simple button press like we're showing here. So that kind of answers in a long way NDI router. But I think that kind of covers it.
I think you did a great job there, Nat. That was super in depth there. Before I get to the next question, though, Andrew, you had one that you wanted to ask first?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a video person, so some of this stuff is going to be a little bit more general. You said that there's a desktop version for Mac and Windows and things like that, and a cloud-based version. How how do you use how would you use a cloud-based version of this? First of all, am I correct about that, Jeff?
Well, it's running on Linux. So
Okay.
whether it's on premise, so you would be running on an Ubuntu box. Ubuntu 20 is what's preferred now, or Ubuntu 20 headless server style in the cloud. So it just depends for either NDI router or the processing engine that I'm starting to show you here. Those are both just running on that machine.
Okay, so if they're normally running in a cloud somewhere, how are you physically connecting these hardware pieces to it? Let's say
IP. So
everything has to communicate over IP.
Yeah. So we could use VLANs if we wanted to, or VPNs. Sorry, we could use VPNs if we wanted to, but it's not necessary. You just open up a certain port, depending on which ports you need, and that's things that we help master that part. It took a little bit, but you have to kind of keep a cheat sheet. I do, of all the magic ports that are used for input and output and control, and then we point the Stream Deck to those ports via HTTP calls, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. So every module, I'll show you.
So just going back to the Stream Deck for a second. So you have a Stream Deck plugged into your computer. There's a Sienna interface that connects the USB to the.
You could use Companion also. There is a interface for the router specifically. You use Companion, and it'll take a emulated Blackmagic. So you go to the certain port that uses. You open up that port, and then you just point your Companion using the Blackmagic router interface. You just point that at that port. So it's the same as if you were on your local network. You would just put in just the IP, but in the bigger world, we would put in the IP and the port, and there it goes. Or actually, it actually still is just the IP, but it knows because it's using that port that I'm going to direct all that. I'm going to receive this information on that port, and that's my control data. And so at that point, then the router can be controlled from the Stream Deck, and you can set up as many buttons as you want on there.
So are these pre-configured AWS? I don't know what AWS calls them, instance. Okay, so let's say you wanted to, you can't use it on your own server. Like, did you want to use DigitalOcean or something? You can't do that. It only works with certain cloud systems.
Yeah, well, it works with all. It doesn't work with DigitalOcean. That's one I haven't stuck it into yet. I actually have one server that I use on DigitalOcean for my Unify network system, but so I'm familiar with DigitalOcean. But no, it's definitely very familiar with AWS. It is very familiar with Azure, and now they're really pushing into Google Cloud also. So the big three, you can do it. Or if you wanted to co-locate a box and put a box in a rack in a co-location in a data center anywhere that you have access to, or at your place, either way, it's just a Linux box at that point, and you just have to make sure you have the right protocols opened up as far as what ports to be able to access it. But it's a web GUI, and so
everything's web, right? There's no
yes,
no
correct.
Desktop version of it. It's just
not at all.
Okay,
it's all the web GUI, and so the server runs headless.
Okay, so and to create one of the Sienna instance or whatever you want to call them, what's the simplified procedure? Okay, I'm a new person. I haven't got this. Do I download something? How do I?
No,
get it to AWS?
It is. They have put this onto our backs as system integrators. Okay. So you connect either myself or there's only like 2 in the North America, but over in Europe there's like 5 or 6, and Asia there are, I don't know, 5 or 6 there. There's not a whole lot of us worldwide. They are a smaller company, but they're very aggressive at making changes and improving things. And so I've been really happy working with them. It's probably been 10 years now that I've worked with them on and off.
So somebody contacts you, and then you
Yep.
take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
We basically.
I don't have to
manage it.
set it up myself.
No.
You take care of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things. We've learned a lot in the last couple of years, but especially in the last year. Be able to do rapid developments and rapid deployments and such. There's scripting involved and things like that, and we've got it down to where we can move it if we need to. So if you had it in the cloud and we wanted to come on-prem for whatever reason, we could do that and or move it back and forth if necessary. So you own the license, it's yours. It is a perpetual investment. It's not a per month or per year type license. It is, you invest in it. Think of it as more of a CapEx versus an OpEx.
Cool. That makes a big difference to knowing that it's not something if I was to get into it, I would just contact you to take care of it. That makes a whole.
We hold your hand, and once you're off and
so
running,
much easier.
It really is really easy to work with. Yeah,
really cool. I'll leave you there. Thank you.
No worries.
So I got another one for you, Jeff. Jesse Mills asks another question. Does Sienna have a standalone NDI Audio Embedder app? I see Audio Embedder 2 as part of the Plus package.
It's all part of the processing engine. It's still all the audio embedders and de-embedders and all that is all part of the processing engine. So whether it's, I want to say, let's see, embed. There is the audio embedder is de-embedder is there, and there should be an embedder also. 99% sure it's part of that. So it starts off as that's the simple version where you probably can't select. But yeah, that is still it's not a standalone. That is not one of their standalone products.
Got you. Yeah, no worries. Ed, I think you got the next one.
It's a lot quieter.
Looks like I'm muted there. Sorry about that. So the next question here is, sorry, I think, there we go. How does Sienna deal with sync in a combined system of NDI and SDI?
It's really not a hard question. I'm just trying to think about how the best way to say it. So everything that we're talking on-prem at this point, right? So it's on-premise. You would basically be creating any of your SDI sources that you have out there. You would use another one of their modules that would bring in those SDI sources, whether it be from a Blackmagic card, Magewell, whatever capture card, AJAs, whatever capture card of your choice that is compatible with the system. You would bring that video in, that baseband video in, and then it would convert it into NDI inside the engine. And so the engine itself does work and manipulate everything around in NDI. So that's basically the workflow there. So whenever it comes in, it should be in sync. Whether it's one signal coming in or 4 signals or 12 signals coming in, it should all be in sync at that point in time. If it's not, then you have capabilities of using one of the modules to be able to slip and slide it forward, backwards, because technically you can only move backwards, but you would be able to move backwards to bring it into sync, both audio or video, or both, depending on what you need to do. And there is a great module that is a sync, what do they call it? It's like a sync test that is, I think it's in the advanced version. Sync palette is what they call it. And it is really, really cool. So it takes a sample of a source and does a multi-viewer all the way across, depending on how big you need it, at all those different frames. And then you look as you're watching and you say, okay, this is in sync, it's out of sync, move over this way. Okay, that one right there, that's how far I need to move the audio. And so it really allows you to grab sync off of and resync things very easily if you need to. Sync palette, there's a demo on the Sienna YouTube's, they have a YouTube channel, and that demo is way better at illustrating it than I am. And so I highly suggest you go to YouTube and look up the Sienna channel if you can. Next, what you got?
Great. So our next question is, how much does something like that cost? And that came from Alan Pita.
Sure. I'll talk in general numbers because it fluctuates. They are a UK-based company, so their price points are in pounds, and so the US dollar being that always in flux, or even pretty much everybody's currency is moving around, and especially in these crazy times right now, US is a little bit upside. So it's in the US terms. I have no idea where you're from, so I can't really tell you any other numbers than what I know. But in U.S. terms, I would say the standard is probably around $7,200 right now, and then the plus would be another $7,200 on top of that. The advanced is by it really depends on which of those models they need. So that's a little bit more, but I'm not sure exactly. I can't put just one number on it because it depends on which one of those modules they need. As I said, that the advanced is really targeted at a very custom broadcast implementation, and that's just the base prices. There is system integrators like ourselves, so we would actually have a managed service that we would bundle along with it to make sure that it's updated, kept in line, and also kept updated, and then also to help do training and teach you on how to use it. So that's just kind of the ballpark of where it's at. And if you just put $1 on every one of those modules, try doing that in an open gear box, and then you'll find out the value really, really quick, because it's just a substantial amount of capabilities.
So I got another one for you, Jeff. So Ed Urban asks us from the YouTube side, how responsive is this? I hate not having a control surface and real physical gear, switcher, and routers. Have had problems in the past with NDI on a bad local network.
Okay, so on responsiveness, I've been doing, most of y'all know that I've been around on the panel especially, I've been doing remote production well before we had to. So we were doing remote production for about the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years. And when I say remote production, we're controlling cameras remotely, we're controlling switchers remotely, we're controlling replay systems remotely, audio remotely, everything that we could touch in a production, I was making it remote, capable. Because the way we're running our crews and doing our sporting events is a distributed workflow. So we were doing tennis tours, or professional tennis, so we were out for weeks at a time. So I was able to do this workflow to help our crew adapt to not having to be out as much, so that allowed them to be able to come in and work from home or work from the office for a couple of weeks and then go back out on the road, and vice versa, flip-flopping back and forth. So it allowed them to get I guess you would say, a better quality of life. So that's what I was shooting for. So that said, we were able to adapt very quickly to running cameras remotely, and then it was graphics first, and then we moved to cameras using our Mark Roberts robotics heads, and then after that we started delving into the switchers, making sure we could control those, and then moved into replay and more advanced graphic systems, and now audio too. Itching to try Andrew's product as we move forward. And Ed and I have talked about it quite a bit. Andrew and I have talked about it quite a bit, and we're excited because we feel like that's a great process to move towards. And whenever you're doing remote, it's really interesting to see how your brain starts adapting. And it's not one of those things that it might not happen immediately, but within 30 minutes, an hour, you wouldn't even think about it. Whenever I say that I'm using a system, I'm cutting video and stuff, the timing and all, we may have had to adjust a little bit more in the past, but nowadays when we're using it in the cloud, it's just like I'm sitting at my desk. It is so fast, it's so quick. It is really amazing how fast you can adapt to it. So I don't think it is something that would hold you back, because we're using things that are real time. We're using feeds that are real time. Or as close to real time as possible, whether it be something as simple as this, like Zoom meetings like we're on right now, but also we're using SRTs, which are a little bit delayed, but NDI Cloud is actually faster than that. So we'll use NDI Cloud to transport a lot. But we cut shows even with live views at 1 second. Because you're cutting as you're seeing it, it's not really a matter of you're not seeing what's happening in real life. So you're cutting as you're seeing it in the processing system. Then what that switcher is seeing, it's really not that big a deal as far as the latency. And I saw that one long question there. So on the Zoom chat.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a question or not. If you want to read through that, Jeff, real quick, I'll kind of take some attention here. So
Yeah.
we're about 15 minutes out from the hour mark here. So if you guys have any questions for us, remember this is a live Q&A session with Jef Kethley tonight on the Sienna. All questions are welcome here. We'll put them in the queue with us. Ed and myself will go through that. We will source them and get them presented to Jeff. So remember, guys, this is a live session. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask us at any moment. This is how AV Tech Talks works and how it does it. If you're new, just giving you guys a heads up on that. If you've been here, you've been a follow with us. Thank you for being here as always. Really appreciate for all that going on. Jeff, you feel good? Did you read that one?
Yep. Yeah. He's actually got some great information in there that, but not really a question per se.
No worries. So the next one I got here, the next one I got here is from Dave Brady. What is the copper to cloud ingest workflow and pipe requirements?
Okay. So let's talk about the going up to the cloud. So this is the NDI Cloud. This is one of their first products that they put out about, I want to say it's 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago. And this is my first introduction to them. So the nodes would be each one of the either the locations, and this one works a lot different than say Bird Dog Cloud, if you're familiar with that, or the Media Looks. This one is many pass both ways. So because it's really dependent on what your bandwidth is at the location, both the locations, but since I'm going to the cloud, it doesn't really matter. But the bandwidth at the location or across to the location, and also how many channels I need to do. So, and then the hardware is going to be dependent on how many channels you need to do also. Hardware meaning the computer hardware. So with the situation like we have here, like that one that says Pizzazz 7, Pizzazz 8, those are two Dell encoders. There are 3930s. That's the Dell little 1U I fell in love with last year. And it is a i9 9900. So that kind of gives you an idea of the processing inside. I can do comfortably somewhere around 10 streams out of that at 1080p. And that means 10 streams, 8 going one way, 2 coming back as returns. That's our normal setup. 4x2 or 4x1, piece of cake. It does that all day. So this software is, again, a Linux-based software. So we're running Ubuntu on that box. We start the box up. We never even have to see it. We just turn it on. And then it syncs up with the cloud servers. The cloud server, this one here, is my AWS server that is actually running next to everything else in here. And what it looks like whenever it's running, if I had the other nodes running, I would be able to see where they are. And then it tells me how many sources I have, what my jitter is, how many packets are late, how many packets are lost, and it's using their own proprietary network. So that is only one way of many ways of getting content from the ground to the cloud, or to the engine itself. The other ways are SRT. So if you have the, I always butcher his names. If anybody can help me with this and pronounce it correctly, Garneman, I'm always struggling with that guy's company name. Worse than my name. People butcher my name all the time. I can't only imagine his. But with his little products, his great products actually, they do SRT, encoding and decoding, and you could use that software to bring that up into the cloud. So it takes sources off your baseband or off of the network as NDI sends it up to the cloud. And then once it's in the cloud, that's when we bring it into the processing engine itself. So I'm going to open up another frame over here, and as you can see, there's a destination there. Okay, so the source connect here as I click on it, these are all the sources. So if I had something running in there, sorry about the quick scrolls, I would have it in my list here. So like right now, I have the VisVector Plus Multiviewer one. That's a source of my network. And that's how I bring it into the processing engine, by using these source connects. And that is any of the NDI sources that I have in my cloud or in my private cloud. Okay. So that's SRT, that it'll take RTMP in as a module and decode it to NDI, SRT RIST, CDI, and if it's on-prem, like I said, you just use the baseband module and a capture card of that machine and bring it into the system that way. So bandwidth, how much do you need? Well, that's where it's configurable in the partner here. I can do a bandwidth test with the, I don't actually have a machine up, so I can't actually hit it. So you can do a bandwidth test and it'll tell you exactly what your bandwidth in your location will take. I have fiber here, so I'm gigabit down and only like 200 up. The other side of that is if I wanted, depending on if I want to bring stuff, I'm mostly bringing stuff into my MCR here. I'm not actually sending out a whole lot, but on site, that allows me to quickly test and say, okay, there's a problem. We just recently did something down in Omar's backyard in Miami, and they swore the studio, oh yeah, we've got fiber, it's no problem, we got it all ready. We could not make a link off of our NDI cloud, and we started looking at this tool, started making those things happen, doing the test and all. It was showing packets dropping all over the place. We showed it to the IT group, and of course they're like, oh well, it worked last week, I'm not sure what happened. And so they went through the ISP. They couldn't figure out what it is. We finally ended. But we knew there was a problem. Then that was the thing, is we identified the problem. Now how do we solve it? How do we work around it? So there's another protocol that we used instead of this product itself. Crazy part is this worked perfectly fine on my LTE backup. I just couldn't use the fiber that was in the building. My LTE worked perfect, but that is one of the things. So we ended up going back to, we had a live view as a backup also, and then we also had another feather in our head is the Sienna Link, which is a module in the processing engine itself, which is a brother of this guy here, of this module, which is Sienna Link Web. And so this creates a web-based, let me pop it up. Do you guys see that? I just want to make sure you see that pop up.
Yep.
Okay, so this, if I had video going into it, you would see a screen, and this is just like a web view of that Sienna Link protocol. And that is, the Sienna Link is their protocol itself. So that is their own proprietary. It's very similar to encapsulating H.264 or 265. And then also, just for anybody that's curious, on Unite, they use VP8 and VP9 codecs also in their protocols to be able to get it out, because it's browser based. So like on the Unite, I'll come back to Unite. Let's come back to Unite, because that's a little bit bigger conversation. All right, next, let's go to the next question. I think I answered that one, but that's basically the cost that you convert it to a source into, whether it's be NDI Cloud or SRT or whatever, get your transport up to the cloud, and then you decode it or de-embed it in the processing engine with one of their modules. Short answer.
It looks before we get in. Oh, so to say, it looks like Andrew has a question here in the panel.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks for the shout out, Jeff, but I wanted to reiterate as well. You're absolutely right about latency. Everybody talks about it right away. Oh, there's going to be latency. It's not going to be, things are going to happen too slowly. You know what? Within a few minutes, you forget all about that kind of stuff. It's really never an issue. It's just something you think about, but in reality, it's not a problem, ever a problem. But my question, I was thinking about I noticed that you have in there an intercom system. What sort of intercom system is that within Sienna? Can you tell me anything about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So intercom, you probably know this, Andrew, as well as anybody. You've been around the block a few times like myself. Intercom is effectively a huge mix minus matrix, right? That's all intercom is. So in this module there, this 4 input module, this module is taking audio from this Unite module into this piece here. So I'm taking audio from here to there, and then I'm taking the audio out here to here. The only thing that's being heard on this NDI output 1 is 2, 3, and 4 on the inputs. And then on output 2 is 1, 3, and 4. Output 3 is 1, 2, and 4. Output 4 is 1, 2, 3. So that way you don't hear yourself, right? So in a normal, say, copper-based intercom system, or a lot of IP-based ones too, you have that null situation where, especially in the old 2-wire stuff, where you had to kind of tweak it and adjust it, make sure it wasn't too loud, wasn't too soft, so that kind of thing. So in the digital world, we're not doing that as much, but we still need to have, and this is creating all those mixed minuses. And so this allows you to very easily create a matrix within the engine. And this is only one of like 6 modules. So there's a 4 and 8, a 12, a 24 now, and that allows you to create different mixed minuses at different levels. And so it depends on how large you need it to be. This larger frame here, as you can see, let me scroll down, and this is the reason why we use 4K monitors now, because you can just spread it all out. So this one is 16 mixed minuses, all created within this.
That's amazing, super helpful. I wonder, is there also an actual intercom client, like
yes,
something you can hook a microphone into and use that?
Yes, actually, you could actually use their product, which they have one for the iOS platform, which is very simple to use. It's just like one button, and it's a single part. So each one of these is a single party line. So so you're creating a party line with that mixed minus engine. The intercom engine is creating that one. So it's a single channel at that point. Their app can address multiple channels also, so depending on where you're pointing it. Now, it's not a Unity or Agent IC replacement or an RTS replacement. It's definitely not a VCOM replacement, but it works perfectly fine with every one of those too.
Really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Omar, do we have any? Oh, I guess the next question actually is my question to take. So from Ed Herbin, what about super lockdown facilities such as pharma? So how can you implement this if you're working in a network that's super locked down, Jeff?
So clarification, on-prem or cloud? It really doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's the same protocols that you normally have. So depending on what you're using to go into the processing engine, so if you're not using the Unite modules, for instance, then you could leave all those ports that you're going to use for that, then you would leave those out. And so you just block them. And so you block everything, but unless you need it, right? So you're not using 80. You're not using 443. You're not using 8080. So you're not using the common ports if you don't need to. Also, if in our instance, one of our clients is the Drone Racing League, they have it locked, which we worked with them because they were concerned about that, of course, as everyone should be in these day and age of crazies out there. We locked down their control IP addresses. So only the people from their fixed IP addresses, their distributed workflow is how they were working. Everything was in the cloud. So they were using people from all over the world, technically, to control their broadcast. They went through and whitelisted each one of those. And that way, nobody else could access the ports that were necessary because you just can't control it. And now that's using AWS tools. There's similar tools in Google Cloud. There's similar tools in Azure. And then if you're, of course, doing it on-prem, then you've got your FortiGate or whatever you happen to be using for a actual master firewall / router. So that it's definitely doable. Encryption is available in a lot of the modules also. So say for instance, I believe this the Unite is one of them that we actually have that available to us. Yes, so there's access words. So if you wanted to look at it that way, but the actual transport itself could also be can also be encrypted too. So it just depends on how deep your needs are. in that.
Great. Aaron Huselage asks, does it integrate with enterprise authentication systems?
I don't see why not. I personally haven't done that, but I don't see why not. It wouldn't be, or unless you're talking like a two-factor. If it just depends on what you would need, Aaron. And I had a great conversation with him a couple weeks ago or a week ago or something like that, and so he's quite advanced. But yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to look into that with you because I know you're quite big in Azure, so that would be great if we could look at that one-on-one for sure.
Cool. So I think right now, for the moment, we're caught up on questions. So Jeff, do you have anything else you can show us?
Let's go deeper into the Unite concept. All right, so Unite, as I said earlier, is their contribution module. So this is their way of being able to bring in video and audio into the normal workflow that we would have, that we're all fighting in the virtual world for meetings and such. So this could be remote speakers, this could be remote guests. The difference in this product is every single one of those gets their own audio and video stream. So it's NDI. So NDI, of course, has audio and video with it if you created it that way, right? So each one of their modules, as they come in, they're getting audio and video. You're getting audio and video into the processing engine. And then that allows you to do quite a bit with it and then send it back to them, a return of the audio and video of your choice. So they're getting an NDI feed back to them of whatever you want it to be. That could be a multi-viewer, that could be a single program out, that could be a program out with a pip of a timer on it, or it could be a notes field, or whatever you want it to be. So that's one of the major things that is a big difference, is that there's a lot of flexibility there. The other side of this too is because of you getting multiple, and this is a complete scalable solution. Now, here I have in this demo setup right here is just a single flow. So I have it expanded out, but you can see we're using specific ports. So this caller 1 is going to be my port 2001. My return to them is 3001. And I've got my preferred resolution of 1080p. And I could frame sync it if I needed to on the way in. And also another thing they just added was a rotation. So if you have somebody using an iPhone, now this is a browser based. So if you have someone that's on an iPhone, Android, they would just use their respective browsers in there. That could be Chrome, that could be Safari. They used to be always suggesting Chrome, but in recent, we found out there's actually use for Edge. So those that are the 3 people that are using Edge on their PCs, you could actually use Edge as a very good rock solid feed coming in. Chrome did something in a latest update. You know how Chrome is. So there's options. That's my point. So whenever you have that is a browser option, you're not having to install software. So that's great for the enterprise market. You don't have to install software. I have had great success punching through any firewall practically I've ever come across. The one I would like to try it on, firewall-wise, I'd like to get behind some of the market traders and such like that, because that would be like the ultimate test through firewalls and such. But so if anybody can help me with that, I'd love to do a demo if you know somebody in the market trading area. Medical was no issues, even through hospitals and such like that. But it's just a matter of it's calling out. So the browser's calling out. So it's not so much of a you don't have that fight with SRT. You know, you guys have probably done this before, or WebRTC, both. You fight getting to a server, a turn server, or whatever. It's not an issue. So this is to the server. There's no spinner. There's nothing else out there that's doing anything to it. You don't have to talk to some server based in another country. You're talking to your processing engine. You're one-on-one with it. And so you have control as the administrator for the processing engine. You have complete control of what is going on as far as what's coming in and what's coming out. So that's kind of the big difference in this. Then other things that are on there, and if we can go back to the share, I'll show you a little bit more, is one of the things we had them add in was the ability to put a name title, and a name location as an option. We can actually adjust this further, but these are fields that'll pop up, and you'll see that these tags will show up. Now, what that allows you to do is use that data to populate a multi-viewer. So you could kind of recreate that Zoom look of the grid with their names on it, but it'd be your styling of the name, not whatever they have in the normal grid. So one of the things that they're already using this for is because you have every single one of those sources as their own independent audio, they also can be mixed. So that brings in the next side. Since I don't have a Yamaha QL1 in the cloud yet, Yamaha, are you listening? I'm sure, right? They're always listening. I want them to listen. It's like we need that engine in the cloud. But since we don't have that, we can use the interface between the processing engine, which has a Reaper, which is a Reaper interface, which allows us to take audio out of the processing engine, bring it back into the processing engine, out of the processing engine, back into Reaper on a separate machine, and then vice versa, send it back to the processing engine as a mixdown. There's also, for those of us that were lucky enough, which will be coming to everybody very soon, is the Audio Connect, the NDI Audio Connect, which will allow us to take NDI audio and bring that into any DAW or mixer that software mixer that supports VST plugins. So that is going to be a huge advantage. So I use Harrison Mixbus as my favorite tool, software for mixing. So I'll use Harrison or Dwar, which is its parent, OEM parent. And so we'll take those sources. So in the situation that we were doing this test as like a comedy club type environment. So we had 64 different audio sources coming in from 64 contributors. And you think, oh, that's a lot. Well, you know, in a normal club, that's probably not a lot, but it was a virtual club. So it allowed us to do a true mix. And we could drop down. Everybody likes a good heckler every once in a while, but sometimes you might want to mute them a little bit. And you might want to bring them down, or maybe that one guy that really laughs really obnoxiously. In Zoom, if you try to do comedy in the Zoom meetings, if you've ever been a part of one of those, it's a nightmare because Zoom's auto mixing is going to take whoever's loudest and they're going to take over whatever the stream. So this allows us, with this contribution part, we can build a fan wall and actually have real audio and real mixing capability of all that different audio. Now, granted, you're going to have limitations in hardware and software of how many channels can you mix, but I did 64 with Mixbus, and I also did mix minuses to all those same 64. So that's another part of this, is it allows me to have a two-way back conversation. So you notice this has intercom output on the United Pro module. So that allows me to have, if I had like people that are coming in as host, I can enable that on their modules, and then I could take that source and bring that into my intercom. So now into my intercom engine. So now whenever they talk, they have a button on their interface, they press that button, they're in my ear and they could have a conversation with me. So think like sports, for those of you that do sports like we do, so that's that little bang box that you have on the table, the DAW, everybody has a DAW tech, but most people use the studio technologies a lot now too, but that's that little announcer box. It's the equivalent of that, but in software. So that allows you to press a box and you can talk to the director in their ear, and vice versa, because you have it enabled. I can send that audio return that's coming back to them through the Sienna link. I can actually take that audio from this is coming off our VCOM server. I take that audio into the intercom channel, and I could even create, either as a voiceover or an intercom, a true ducking IFB. So I can knock out every bit of the program audio that they have and talk directly so they can hear me in their ears. So those kind of things are just things you just can't do easily with other tools that are out there. But they definitely were thinking about that in the broadcast workflow here. So that's kind of the basics behind the different modules for Unite. So the real big pieces are, you have Unite Pro, which and it also has echo suppression. So if you had, like right now I'm using a stick mic or a desk mic, and I have earbuds in because I like to hear Omar really loud and clear. But I could turn up my speakers, and I would then kick in echo suppression at that point if I was using the system for that, because let's face it, Zoom does have a fantastic echo suppression, but it's an app based, right? So they're doing their echo suppression on the server side. So we're tying back, I'll show you a quick demo of what that's doing. So we're tying these together. So this audio coming from, this is 2010, this 2010 right here is the original source, 2011 is the secondary source. You notice that the link is going from an output, and I'll move it over here so you can see it. So it's coming out of them into there. So that way it creates that mix minus and that echo suppression, but it's doing it in the server. And so you can have people with microphones on and speakers on without having to worry about that feedback loop or hearing yourself back into them. So that's all things that are really kind of targeted at the Unite Pro modules. And then again, as it's going out, they're getting this return off the Sienna Link web. And of course, I don't have any video going into it, so it's not going to show it right now. But that's basically the basics behind Unite. So then, as I was saying, scalable. This is one frame here with 16. Now, what is my limit? It's about, as you see at the very top here, this load that I have, 0.7 out of 36. So right now I'm using less than one thread out of the 36 threads I have available on this machine. Now this machine is a C5 on the Amazon infrastructure. So it's a C5 compute. There's no GPU. You don't need a GPU in any of the United or any of the Sienna product like this, because in the router Sienna processing engine, it never uses a GPU at all. It's all CPU based. So that makes it really perfect for cloud computing. So you don't have to worry about, do you have those resources available? We've ran out in a couple of different locations with the G sources that we have to use for vMix machines or for graphics machines and such like that. With the Cs, we never run out. So this machine, I could scale it up. All I do is I shut it down, turn it back on, add a new size. I could have it up to 96 cores. We figured out the math that would handle somewhere around 200 guests coming in through the Unite modules. So that's 200 people coming in. Now that's not a Zoom, right? So Zoom, you could do 300 in a heartbeat in a meeting, but that's a different type of use case scenario. So that's 200 I could have with individual audio and video. This means I could actually route those through my router, and I could pull up any person just by clicking on a button. And that adds a whole lot of, I would say, more professional or more in-depth, deeper versions of video production than we're seeing right now with people just trying to spotlight people.
Absolutely. Andy, sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say that's been a dream of mine ever since I started watching Zoom, was the ability to take all the audio in, mix it, and send it back again. So if NDI and Sienna and so on have something in the pipeline that's going to allow that, I think that's going to be huge, just because we all know how these, one person's loud, one person's quiet, somebody sounds good, somebody doesn't sound good. If you could have some control over them individually and not just let Zoom take care of it all, it'll be amazing. Now you said, I don't know if you can speak much about NDI, but you said that NDI's module will be a VST or some kind of a plugin. Do you happen to know if they're going to make an engine that it just feeds directly into Core, or will you always need a host of some sort to make this work? And if that's not, because that's NDI, not Sienna, I know you may not be able to answer that.
No, I actually do know quite a bit about NDI. So
okay.
On the NDI tools, currently right now, I'm looking at their website real quick just to see, just so I don't misspeak, because there's one version of the Ordure uses a different type of protocol than the. Let's see.
So I'm thinking of something that's like
LV2. LV2 is the other one. So
okay.
It's VST3 or LV2 plugins. And so that allows you,
okay.
Yeah, it's plugins that allow you to bring that audio into that software mixer at that point, which pretty much all the software mixers that I've found out there are all DAWs that are just pretending to be a software mixer.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking more along the lines of being able to pull it in the way you would with DVS or Dante or Loopback or
Well,
something like this
you could do
without
that
having
now.
to use a DAW.
Yeah, you could do that now if you have a processing engine on-prem, you could actually bring AES 67 Dante, AES 67 in and out of it. So there is that capability also. If you're on-prem, as you well know, Dante in the cloud is it's just a wish.
Not going to happen. That's why I'm excited about NDI having multiple audio streams through the internet. But then once it hits my computer, how do I get it into an interface? Is what I'm trying to figure out.
I think they're not. The NDI 5 version 5 is imminently slated for release. So they're patience, I guess you would say. Just a little bit more.
I'm on the mailing list. I'm waiting.
Okay,
I'm waiting.
good.
Check it every day.
There's going to be a lot of great things coming with it. And some of that actually addressing that other question, there's also NDI Bridge and NDI Remote. Those are things that are built into NDI 5 that are going to work just the same, or not just the same, but they'll work hand in hand with the processing engine or vMix or anything else out there that is using NDI, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. So those are both device or software solutions that they're putting out there as the framework to be able to bring. Let me bring this up here to the screen so you can kind of see what I'm talking about on the NDI side. So these are all the different modules here that you can see. There we go. So there's the webcam input, which we've all been using probably. If you use NDI tools, that's probably one of the most common ones I use because I bring that in. That's how I bring NDI into Zoom. And then there's the screen capture, which is how I bring the output of Zoom back into my video switcher. And then, but the ones that are coming is this NDI. This is for bringing from the local network to the wide area network. And then NDI Remote is going to allow you to share and receive NDI sources over the web too. So this is the infrastructure that they're going to be coming out with very, 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 very soon. Right? Matter of fact. So this is all pieces of their free pie too, which is kind of nice. So now these might not be 100% of what you're looking for, Andy, but it'll allow you to at least have the framework to build a solution that you need.
Yeah, and I see that there's developer tools. So even if they don't have it quite the way I want it, I may be able to build something that does what I'm looking for. So that's really exciting.
It's free to get into their SDK and be part of their developing system. So I've been a developer with them since the beginning of it, and they're very helpful. So if you're stuck, and I am not a coder by any means, so I got stuck a couple times on a project that we were using, and they were like very, very, very helpful with us. So I highly suggest it if you want to do, if you haven't already signed up for that, the third-party developer, then definitely do.
Definitely did as soon as I saw the announcement. So I'm waiting patiently.
Great.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, Omar?
Yeah, I believe there are. Sorry, just give me 1 second. So Ed from YouTube is asking, Ed Hergen is asking, have you had any situations where IT didn't play ball? And what have you had to, or what was your workaround for those solutions if they didn't play ball with you, if you went to, let's say, a pharma site or one of those sites?
So I guess that would mean like it's play ball as far as making it work if you were trying to get links back and forth, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one I was in, that studio down in Miami. I mean, they basically just threw their hands up like, that's all we could do. And so it was up to us to find that solution. For me, it's all about backups. So I usually run with 3. So I have my primary solution that I want to use, my backup solution that will perfectly be fine with using, and then there's the, oh crap, now nothing works, turn on the live view. So that's basically been my workflows for outputting. For receiving, it's not really, bringing stuff back down is not really a big issue. But we've had times where we also have had those IT guys that are like, well, we're a Teams house, so we're not going to use Zoom. Or we're a Zoom house, and I didn't even know Teams existed. So, there are a lot of different places that we just have to be flexible. And I think that's really kind of what our jobs have turned into. Would you guys agree? I mean, there's no one trick solution for everything. What I've noticed in the processing engine for Unite, though, it is actually pretty easy to get in and out like I said, because it's going through the browser, and I've never had IT blocking that functionality yet. Like I said, I still want to try it in a market situation, somebody that's in financials, because I think there's probably the most tight security that you could think of. But
yeah, and I'll second what you're saying, Jeff. I definitely think a lot of us have had to be creative about solutions for our clients and how to get around some of these IT issues. Or if, for example, at a hotel situation, we did live view as a solution because it was like the hotel had to charge X amount of fee, which was crazy for what it was. So we just brought in live views for everything and sent it out that way and had zero problems. So it's like we're all figuring out these solutions, and I'm sure the listeners out there, a lot of our followers and everybody who listens and tunes into us, they've had similar encounters. So I definitely resonate with that. I'm sure everybody else is listening is also resonating that they've had to come up with those solutions on their own as well to solve IT problems that shouldn't be an issue, but they are because of XYZ reasonings, right? Anyway, sorry. So next question from Josh Kaufman is, how do you find NDI stability? Can you talk about how you have solved NDI hiccups? Many producers will not trust NDI for mission critical feeds. Is there any redundancies for this aspect of your production?
Okay. Mission critical feeds. That always kills me and cracks me up because we've done full TV broadcasts on it for years, 3 years, 4 years, and it's gone to Tennis Channel. It's gone to overseas to ATP Media. There's a little company, and most people may have heard them. It's called NBC. They've been using it for years, and it's in their workflow very, very heavily. They use a processing engine. They use Viz Vectors for mixing video and creating studio content. Drawn Racing League, as I said, one of my clients last year, they did a full broadcast on not only NBCSN, but also the Big Peacock itself on proper NBC. It wasn't prime time, but granted, it was on NBC. But they did that whole broadcast all NDI based from inside the cloud, their AWS cloud that we set up for them. That broadcast went to air, and that you can't get any more higher than you can't get higher than that, right? That was a 1080. Well, 1080i. It was content produced in 1080p, and then it ended up being 1080i because their broadcast standard is 1080i. But absolutely, as far as reliability and things like that, it's all in how you design your system. So if you're talking about a local area network, work with a consultant like ourselves or somebody else that really understands what those network settings need to be. Just like Ed has found in using Dante, you do the right things. You do the things that are people have figured out, and you have to test. And sometimes, as Andrew just also figured out, it still doesn't work. But you have to figure out, that maybe a Mac wasn't the right thing to be using for the Dante solution at that point. But not that I'm against Macs or anything like that. I like them. They're cute. But the other thing is, whenever you're doing NDI development or NDI deployment, it's really about knowing what your network can do. So in designing that network infrastructure and that fabric to be NDI compliant. So you just don't turn on certain things and you don't turn off certain things because you know that needs to be done. So we have training that we've attended through NewTek. So we're NDI. I'm NCSE certified myself, and so NDI was a big part of that. But there are other modules that we've completed, and that's one way that you can get ahead. That class is available. So if you wanted to really get a jump on it, or you just hire a consultant and then they tell you use these switches and turn this off, turn this on, and do it for you as many times. We do it as kind of as a service as part of many of our consulting services. So then think about it in the cloud. And this is one of the great things I love about the cloud. I don't mind piddling around with network switches and stuff like that. I've gotten good at it over the years. I never wanted to be good at it, but I've had to get good at it. I can get in and out of a Ubiquity system with their unified platform very quick and easy. I know it very well because we use it ourselves. Have been using it ourselves for years now. I can get in and out of Cisco switches pretty easy. I hate turning on terminal. I just hate it. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that guy. But I'm standing behind the monitor looking like the Matrix with all the numbers running all over the place, because that's just what I've turned into being. But you don't necessarily have to do that in the cloud. That's the coolest thing about it, is it just works, because that processing engine that I'm using right now, which is, what does it say, 36 core? 36 core. I think it's on a 25 gigabit network NIC. 25 gigabits. Turn it up to a 96, it's 100 gigabits. It's like, I never have to worry about, is QoS turned on or off, or I never have to worry about, is IGMP snooping on or off. Those are all things that when you're working in the cloud, all you have to do is make sure you have your ports open and your security groups correct. And that is a little bit of a learning curve, but once you've learned that, you don't have to mess around with a bunch of router settings and switch settings. And that itself is a beautiful, beautiful thing in the cloud. I can say that for sure.
So I just want to throw out there, in addition to what Jef was just saying here, if anybody's interested in the New Tech University stuff, we'll put a link for that in the Facebook and YouTube side. And in addition to that, if anybody's interested in diving into more of IT stuff, there's a couple chats we've done in the past with IT, deep dives in there. Episodes, probably at least season 1, we did some deep dives into some IT stuff. And if you guys are curious right now, Google's offering a Google certification for IT, which again, I'll send you that link there. It's about $35 a month. And it takes about 6 months if you do 10 hours a day. So just food for thought out there, a little nugget of knowledge. I think we're caught up on questions at the moment.
I'll also add to that too, if you go to audinate.com, the Dante certification courses, which are free, there's 3 different ones. The first one is very simple. You probably, when you have to watch the videos, you could probably pass it if you're in this world at all. But 2 is you're going to have to watch the videos and learn a little bit, but they're great videos. I mean, they take it from a very basic and go very elaborate. 3, you're going to have to study a little bit and brush up a little while. But once you master those 3, you can actually talk like an IT guy. And that's kind of cool. Sometimes. Not around the girls.
I'll dump those as well in the comments. I never did level 3. That was above my scope of knowledge. But level 1 and 2 was, I'll agree with you on Jef.
But I bet you if you go back,
easy.
you could after using your knowledge in 1 and 2, you could go back and I bet you would breeze through 3 just after a little bit of watching it and stuff like that. It's all about how we use it, right? It's not about just hearing the knowledge, seeing the knowledge. It's about how we use it. Once you use anything, you start committing that to your brain cells, and your brain cells start to regurgitate it a lot easier. I strongly suggest going down that path to get familiar if you're going to be in this space. And gosh, guys, we all are. If you're going to work, anybody that thinks that IT or IP based audio and video is going away anytime soon, retire. You're done. You're not. It's not going to happen. Everything is moving to IP. Everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jef, obviously here at AV Tech Talks and through AV Educate, we're all about leveling up your skills. So Omar's going to be dropping some links in the chat. Go get some training right from the manufacturers. The Dante training. I mean, I've done level 1 and 2, and completed 1 and 2, and then I started level 3, and then just got too busy right before the end of it. But yeah, it's a definite leap from 2 to 3, but it's a really helpful class for getting base networking knowledge if you don't already have that kind of background. So yeah, we're always about anything where you can level up your skills. If there's also, if anyone out there, if there's something that we should be looking at as far as things that we're missing that we should be picking up, let us know, because we would love to hear from you, find out what it is that you guys want to pick up, and what we should be talking about. So, but moving forward, Jef, was there anything else that you were interested in talking about with Sienna specifically? Or
I had a couple more things. I'm opening up a different version real quick. So give me just a few seconds if you want to ask me questions, whatever. I'm just open up a different demo version.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Omar.
If you guys see those, if you guys see those links, we just dropped them out on the YouTube and Facebook side. There should be 3 links. One to go to the New Tech University, which you can get track asset training, NDI training, and the sorts. The other one's for the Google IT certification, again, which is 7-day free trial and cursory, and then you pay $35 a month. And then the first one you see is the Dante Audio certification, which is free. Levels 1, 2, and 3 still free. I highly recommend those. They're definitely easy. Actually, level 2, I had some difficulty with. I had to call Ed on. Ended up having to call Dante, not call, but email them, technical support, because it was one of the platforms I was using, Safari on a Mac, go figure, was having problems submitting my questions. This is why I kept having these problems. So after I switched over to a PC and got on Chrome, or not Chrome, Google Chrome, it worked fine. So go figure.
And with the Audinate, with the Dante courses, they actually just updated them all this year. I don't know if 3 got the update yet. I know 1 and 2 definitely got updated to include their Dante AV product information, which is now Dante has a video component where it'll carry video plus 8 channels of audio. So that's a cool new thing. And there are actually a couple products came out last week. Couple cameras and a couple other things that are implementing. As far as I know, they're the first products that are implementing the Dante AV products.
Yeah, they've got a long way to go before they catch up with India. A long way. There's literally thousands of products out there that are NDI capable, and I love Dante. My whole audio infrastructure is all Dante. I just can't see them getting enough traction to make it worthwhile, but they could find a niche market. That's the thing.
I think it depends on how Dante AV has been around for a while, but not commercially, not in any commercial products. These are the first commercial offerings. But the fact that it integrates with your already existing Dante audio networks is kind of huge. So what Andy was kind of asking about before is, how do you take this NDI audio and interface it with something like your DVS or Dante Virtual Sound Card, or a console for that matter. The Dante AV product, it looks like I'd be able to take that embedded audio and then send it to my console and then manipulate it and send it wherever else I need it to go. So it's a young product, so we'll have to see where it goes, but definitely some interesting. It did take a while to take off. The pandemic didn't help that at all, but it's also a hardware product, and NDI is a free tool, so there's a big difference in their business models, and we'll just have to see where it goes.
Agree. Well, I'm ready to go further with some of the other stuff on there if you're ready.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'll kick back on the share so everybody could kind of see this, and I apologize again. I'm not looking up in the sky. I'm actually looking at a monitor above me. Okay, so this is a different frame. So the way they're broken down is there's frames, there's grids and frames. So this is a different grid and a different frame of what we're seeing. So this signal generator here. So this is just a simple test signal generator, and I could actually change that to, if I wanted just simple bars, which are so boring, with tone, or if I needed to have something with some movement in it. So these are all just tools that are part with it.
If we're going to hear it, don't play the tone, please.
No, I know.
We've already had our share of getting kicked off for 1K tone.
No, I'm purposely muted. Yeah, purposely. So that's just a great thing, a great tool to use. Oh, I turned it off. Don't worry. A great tool to use whenever you're testing your signal flows, especially in the cloud. I want to know what's going where. So we use this all the time. As you notice, I have a destination on that. It's just called signal generator, and then I patch that through. Another big piece, then we're talking about broadcast side, where someone asked a question about that earlier. So this is one of those things that we have in it, which is the failover switch. And the guys at Drone Racing League use this extensively. So they had two camera sources coming up from every one of their pilots, players that were, because this was a sim. So they had two sources coming up from them as camera sources. Then they also had their player sources coming in too. And there was as twice a primary and a backup. So they were able to create that and use the failover source to do a lot of that automation of, oh crap, we lost that guy's feed, what do we do? So we engineered it. Now I'll just give you a demo of what it looks like with the signal generator just as two sources coming in. You can see as I have these actually layered on top of each other. So now my primary source is for some reason telling me I only have, my primary has failed and my failover is active. If I broke that, then it would automatically fall over back to my primary. And same thing for my secondary level here. I could have a media player, and this is kind of what we did with them. I had a media player of a clip of just their face. So it was basically a still. So I had a clip that was just their face that would then be the failover. So if they lost both their video feeds, then it would fall over through those two, and then it would fall over a third time, or I guess technically a third time, that would be just their face. And so they would never have a blank spot on a broadcast. It would always have multiple layers and backups, which is quite cool to be able to do that kind of flexibility. And that's one of the big things that was a big seller for them. One of the other products that we use quite a bit, and I'll find it in here down under, there is a search bar at the top. When you get over 100 modules, it comes in really handy. So here's the audio embedders, de-embedders, and everything like that. There is also a meter bridge for you audio geeks out there like me. The meter bridge allows me to bring video into it, or technically it's video and audio, because I'm bringing that into from my signal generators, video and audio, but I'm only using the audio side in the meter bridge. And I can label those sources as they come in. So kind of think of this as a multi-viewer for your audio. So then once I turn it on, I'll go to the preview and I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So on the preview, and I have two different going. It's actually playing tone, as you can see it on that coming out. So it gives you a history of what has happened, which is really nice when you're doing things that are spoken word or such, that you may not have heard that one channel or like a participant or something like that. But I can see, oh, I had a dropout at this time. And you can change your settings in there of how wide, how long you wanted to go in that history. But it is really, I found it is really great to be able to see that visual part. So I take this guy here, this video monitor. So this is just, again, another NDI feed of those monitors. And so then I take that and I go back down into our larger video mixer here. As you can see, this is the vision mixer that's built into the system. And I could punch around this with my, let's see if I have my Stream Deck. I don't have on the right channel, but of course, but it allows me to punch around into the preview and the program row, and allows me to basically cut a basic small show with 6 inputs. And then that allows me to send it out, but I also have meters on here. So as I have that audio routed in, I can see it. But what I do on the multi-viewer out of this, so in my multi-viewer, and make sure I've got everything started correctly. I should be seeing a multi-viewer out of that. I'm not, am I? Apologize, I rushed a little bit whenever I was getting started with this. I didn't think we'd go so fast that we'd be able to see everything that we did, but we did. So in the multi-viewer, I have that same meter bridge as an input into the multi-viewer. So it allows me to send that down to my producer. And this is a great thing, is like one of those things you're talking about fighting with IT, right? Well, I was fighting with the audio guy that was on site because he was giving me 2 different levels. I had a left level and a right level that were totally off. And I could see that in my meters. It's like, no, I'm giving you the same, I'm giving you the same. So I sent him back the multi-viewer with, these are my meters, this is what I have. He goes, oh, wow, you're audio is kind of low. I'm like, this is what I've been telling you for an hour. So, sorry, audio guys. Audio, can you please level them out? It goes, oh yeah, see, I have my pan is off a little bit on that output. So he fixed that, and then he boosted my levels up, and now we have a perfect broadcast at that point on, and never had to touch him again. But it was great for him to be able to see, instead of us just talking about, hey, this is a problem we have, but he was able to see exactly what it was, and that's how we use that audio meter through the multi-viewer coming back down. So another place that we find ourselves a lot is using this NDI analyzer. So this allows me to drop in on any source that I happen to have. So that's my program out. So I'm going to go ahead and check my multi-viewer out. If I take and turn that off and turn it back on again, it'll resync. You'll notice this will probably change, or it might be the same. No, it's going to stay the same because that's what the same output of the program is. So it's 1920 by 1080 progressive, and it's 30 frames per second. It tells me what the format of the video is. SHQ2 is actually the codec that's being used from NewTek. And then it tells me I have 2 channels of audio. And so this analyzer is just like a lifesaver. I love it. That's probably the one module I use everywhere. So then as we go through some of the other bigger projects, and we talked about contribution. So this is one of those, as just so I can see the audio. I don't even have to hear it. I can see it directly off of that bridge. And then the larger one there, as we saw in the other modules. So this is 16. This is one I was building just to get started. But this is a different way of routing. So you could use the router to do a lot of things. This is kind of like more of an automated router. I'm going to find the smaller version and start with that because it is it's kind of tough to understand it to start with. So I'm going to use these 4 sources, and this is how easy it is. It's just like connecting cables, and actually are called cables. If that makes sense. And now in the later version, I also can change my cables. I do that sometimes to kind of know that some lines are intercom, some lines are just audio only, some lines are video. So it allows me to organize things. So these 4 are 4 feeds coming in. I also could have an intercom line coming in too. And this is why I would have that. So my feeds going out are coming back into the people that are there. So it's taking care of doing a video mix minus for you. And then this contribution going out right here, this is what's going to my switcher. So if I click up the button to start the interface, I definitely broke something earlier. I'm not sure what I broke, but I broke something. I was moving way too fast and not paying attention, apparently. So in the interface, normally, let me try the other one and see if it wants to come up. In the interface, it is like a router. Yep, I broke it. Nothing like a live demo when you're breaking things. Yep. That is one of the first, I know what I did. It was a process order. I was layering different demos on top of demos, and I shouldn't have done that. So ports, remember we talked about that, Andy? Ports, you have to respect your ports. So I have different modules that are using the same ports. And I need to go through and it takes me time to work out each one of these to make sure that I'm not overlapping on top of each other. And
you get a list of used ports or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no, there's not an active list. That would be outstanding.
There you go. Next version.
Yeah, it would be outstanding. But it is one of those things we just have to manipulate and manage ourselves. And I just do that in a spreadsheet, which I do not want to show publicly. So I will hold off on that. But that is basically how I have to go through and just make sure that I'm not talking across the same ports. Because I actually have 2 different Sienna engines running right now, 2 processing engines, and some of those ports overlap. And that's what I did in the frame. So you just have to be more careful when you're building things from scratch. When I'm moving fast, I don't always write things down, unfortunately. So as far as the modules and things like that, Contribution Manager is more like think of it in the television world. If you're in the broadcast world, ever been in news, of queuing up someone and letting them know they're going to go to air. And so it's like a router to do that. So you would have, say, 4 inputs that you are bringing in, and those are A, B, C, D. And then you have E, F, G, H, and then you have another. So that's the 12 people that you might be bringing in as panelists. Well, you could talk to A, B, C, D off the intercom line and let them know, hey, we're going to be finishing up you in just a few minutes. And then you go to your next group and press the button and talk to all 4 of those at one time. So it's just a way of bringing people in, or in a news scenario, it's like, hey, Bob, we're about to come to you live from the field. And can you see the return video? They get a return video back to them. So it's just an easier, I guess you'd say, managed way to manage your talent, your remote talent and such. So that's where that contribution management comes from. Any other questions that have popped up or anything?
So I have no questions. We did get a couple of responses that people are saying it's a little over their heads right now, so they're just here to watch and tune in. But we got 15 minutes left. So again, if anybody has any questions or anything that they haven't asked or been waiting for, now's the time to do it before we wrap up.
It's a very impressive piece of software. Holy crap. I mean,
it could totally be over your head very easily. And there's still times where I'm like, what does that do? And then you just drag it in and play with it and then break things like I did earlier. And then you just back yourself up. And so if I wanted to, I could just start over completely fresh. And I could back this up also and have different versions for different shows. So that's another big factor of it. But the flexibility there, I've never hit a show yet that we were helping produce that I didn't find a use of at least 2 or 3 modules in there. And then it would be like, oh, hey, I need to do this. Audio. Here's a perfect example. It's like, oh, we're going to have only 2 audio channels, that one is going to be English and one's going to be Spanish. Show day. Well, we're going to do English, Spanish, French, German, and maybe Taiwanese. That's not in English. I mean, that's not a language. It was Thai. I think it was Thai. It was like we went from 2 to 6. So what do? Okay, well, we bring that audio, we embed it on the site. We embed that audio into the NDI stream. So as Andy knows, you can do, how many channels of audio embedding can you do, Andy? Test time.
I don't do video, so I have no idea.
No audio. How many audio channels can you embed in an NDI stream?
Like I said, I never used NDI. I don't know.
It's
64
unlimited.
maybe, or
Unlimited.
Okay.
Unlimited. So as many as you want.
You got me.
Yeah. So now you got to go back and study a little more, right? I'll help you. So as many as you want, but most of the time we limit it to something that matches up with SDI. SDI is what, either 8 or 16. By spec, it's 16. So in those situations, we had encoders or embedders that were taking the Dante audio from the, it was one of those little Yamaha boards, the Ravage, the little one, the little one. Yeah, and so they had all the audio channels being mixed down from the translations that were coming in. And by the time the event started, we ended up at 12 channels. And so we embedded all those Dante audio channels into that one NDI stream and pushed that up to the cloud through NDI Cloud. And then I took that into the box here and I said, okay, I'm going to de-embed it. Well, if I use just this one, that's just a single channel of de-embed. But I also have the ability to take my audio selector. And now from the audio selector, I could say, out of those 8 sources, I could take and say, okay, channel 1, instead of being 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 4, well, they messed up. Instead of me asking the audio guy, who was like, he was gray head already. I mean, he was like totally stressed out about this whole thing. At that point, I was like, instead of me bothering him, it's like, okay, 2 and 3 are flip-flopped. So instead of 2 being Spanish, it was German, and 3 was Spanish. So all I have to do is then go in and do that. Now I've got the right audio channels in the right pathway. And then I just take my audio de-embedder out of it, of which channels I wanted to select, connect it up, and then bring it into my path wherever I wanted to bring. And now I've got dedicated Spanish. Then I have dedicated German. And then then okay, maybe one of those translators, this is where it gets really fun. It's like one of those translators was a little soft, right? So we were fighting with it. It was like, do I bother the audio guy again? No, I just handle it here. So I might want to have somebody that's really loud. I'll drop an audio limiter on it. If I wanted to bring in somebody that is that was a little soft, I have the ability to bring in faders. Let me get this over here on the side so we can see it. So each one of those 8 channels I could bring up. Now it's not a true audio mixer, but for tweaking signal flow and just making small, minute changes, I didn't have to go back to the A1 or the A2 and say, hey, can you make this change? Can you make this change? And we didn't at that time we weren't on site. We were all completely off site. So we were able to control our own destiny in our cloud, in our infrastructure and the processing engine by using all these different modules. And that was one of the things. Like I had one guy that when he get on the mic, I mean, he just crushed it. And the audio was fine in the house, but it was killing it coming to us. So I dropped a limiter on his channel. Simple. Didn't even have to bother those guys at all. So that's the kind of flexibility that the processing engine has really turned into being for us, in just the ability to grab one thing and solve a problem. And so it's like our big Swiss Army knife, I guess you would say, of many things. Frame syncs, frame rate conversions, all those things that we fight in the digital world because somebody thinks that 30 is 29.97, but it's not. It is, but it isn't. But they call it 30. It's like, no, he swore to me it was 30. It was 30. But it's like, okay, that's your numbers are different than my numbers because I put that NDI analyzer on it and said, no, this is what I'm getting from you. It goes, oh, well, let me check the camera. Oh, yeah, you're right. So those are the kind of things, those tools are what really help you really bring some things into the workflow that will make your job easier, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize. Well, I mean, that's great that it does sample rate conversion and our frame rate conversion, because there's so many pieces of gear, that we use on the ground here that don't do that or don't have scalers and whatnot. Is there anything it doesn't do? Are there any limitations?
I would say the audio is actually, I mean, it is very strong in the modules and stuff like that. As far as like an actual audio mixer, the closest thing we have to it is that one that I showed you here, which is as it pops up. This is the basics of the audio mixer. So you've got 6 sliders and a master output. You can do audio, follow video, but it's not an audio mixer per se. And so that's where you would bring in the output, like, where is that guy? Restream, Reaper. So Reaper to NDI. Oh, I got it's on somewhere. It just popped up an error. So I have it on in a demo somewhere. And that's another place I'd like a list of all the modules. But, like I'm running this one right now, as you can see, I got a load of 7 to 36, and I have all these pages open. But the Reaper or NDI to Reaper or Reaper to NDI, both of those modules work together. But that allows you to send it out to that DAW that is in another machine running on Linux or Windows that's running the Reaper software. So you could still do a lot in Reaper. I prefer the Harrison. It just looks like a audio board, so it's easier to teach people how to use it. Even if it is virtual knobs, it's still possible.
And will it sample rate convert the audio as well? Will it do, like, if you have a source that comes in that's 44.1, will we be able to cut it to 48K or?
Well, I mean, you're effectively, yes, you're effectively making up stuff, but yeah, it has audio conversion also.
Very cool. And then is there a limit on video resolution?
4K. So it'll do 4K. Actually, it'll do 8K. It'll do above 4K. There's not like a hard limit or anything like that. So it's not a 1080p or 720p workflow at all. It's up to 4K easily, but it does have certain modules that will do higher than 4K. Because that in the end, NDI is what? Unlimited audio capable, but also resolution independent. So it depends on the hardware also. So how much power you have available to you. But you could definitely do higher than 4K on a couple of the modules pretty easily.
Cool. Great. Omar, anything else you got, or anybody in the panel have any other questions?
So I can take 3/4 of the television station master control and just toss them out the window.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. It's between this VisVector Plus, which is my choice of software for switching. It's a television studio in a box. I think about one of the things that we have to fight a lot. I don't know about you, Ed and Omar, that you may not have ran across this as much as I have, but multiple destinations. That's a big part, and that's where with the processing engine it's very easy. Now you could do it with multiple vMix machines. If you need to create, like, say, a Spanish track, a German track, multi-language is one thing. But if you needed separate content, so maybe I needed the Asian distribution point needed to be branded and graphics, and everything needed to be completely different than my European, which is then completely different than my South American, which is completely different than my US. So that is something where with the processing engine, if I wanted to bring in each one of those as sources, I could put a graphic channel on each one of those with their CG module. Let's see, go back up do a short. It's just called CG Engine. And so this allows me to use, you can tie this in with Singular, if you're familiar with Singular Live, which is a great HTML5 type of CG. You just put your content URL in here, and then you drive that CG into this module. This module overlays it on top. So you can have multiple channels of these, and I could keep opening up as many of these. It's not just a one module does it. I just have to keep in mind how much processing I'm using. And we have a formula, and we have a spreadsheet that we could go in and say, I'm going to use this many of these modules, this many of these modules at this resolution. It allows me to calculate, okay, I need to have this size of machine to be able to run it. But by using those multiple CG engines, I could have 4 different, completely different distributions. And those are things that TV stations have to do all the time with their subchannels and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff that you'd be throwing out, injector cards and all that kind of stuff that you would have in a typical engineering rack. You just throw it away.
And then Jeff, for in that example, would you be able to do like the different standards? So like for Europe, would you be able to do a PAL versus an NTSC here?
Yeah, so not only, I mean, you could convert standard conversion, frame rate conversion, every bit of that is all a big part of this. So it gives you that output to whatever you need it to be, for sure. Yeah, it's a really big part of it. Considering they're from the UK to start with. So everything starts out at 50. Wrong, but still starts out at 50.
Gotcha. Great. Well, I think we're getting close to time, so I think we're gonna wrap here. Yeah, I would love to just see if there's anything else from anyone on our panel before we kind of close it out for the night. We got everything on social pretty much. There was actually one other question, from Jonathan McDougall on Facebook that asked a while back. He asked, Jeff, are you presenting any info at the upcoming AV Tech Talk Summit?
Yes.
You are.
Am I?
You are.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I am.
Yes. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to give us a little preview of maybe what?
To be perfectly honest, I don't even remember what I signed up for.
Oh. Well, that's good.
I know you said talk about something, and we went back and forth, but I don't remember where we ended up. So what are we talking about, Ed?
I think you had mentioned you were going to gather a couple people and have a little panel chat.
Yes, that's the plan. But what was the topic? Would it be something cloud related?
I think it was something about
Barbecue
like large
sauce, I think.
scale.
I could do
Large
that.
scale.
So it's going hybrid, streaming large scale in-person live events is kind of what the conversation is going to be about on the topic with Jef. If you guys want to see that, I will drop the link.
And I can't wait to show you some of the stuff that the studio we completed last week. It was so great seeing it come together. And yeah, I am looking. I'm just messing with you guys. I am really looking forward to this. It's going to be a good time. Really good stuff.
Great. And I actually can't wait to see the other people that Jef is going to bring in to have a talk. That's I think what I'm most excited about. What other people are in Jeff's brain trust that are going to be able to impart some insane knowledge on us. So that's what I'm looking forward to with Jeff's talk. So that'll be great. So that's the of course we're talking about the AV Tech Talk Summit, which is coming up July 18, 19, 20. So not very far off. So hopefully Omar just looks like he dropped a link in at least the Facebook chat and hopefully YouTube. Maybe we can get one over here. If you haven't gone and registered yet, make sure you go do that. Support AV Tech Talks. We're bringing together a whole bunch of people to talk on important topics in streaming. That's what the main focus of this year's summit is about. And it's just going to be a real great opportunity to get a high concentration of information over a 3-day summit, kind of like what we do here every week, but just super intense by making it more sessions and over a shorter period of time. So really looking forward to that. Make sure you guys check that out. Awesome. I see Omar is dropping links, but it looks like you actually sent that one just to me, Omar. So we'll get that one reposted in the webinar. But yeah, no. So that's what we have coming up. This was episode 52 of AV Tech Talks, and there's 52 weeks in a year. So that means this would be the last one of the year that we since we started this. So that means next week will be the first one of a second year of doing AV Tech Talk. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Anyone who's been with us the whole time, thank you. I know Justin Butler, who's here tonight, was an early watcher and did an early episode with the companion Pi. And we've come a long way. We were only in 360p back then. Now we're on full 1080p. Of course, thanks to the support of the DVE store. So make sure you check them out at dvestore.com and tell them how great AV Tech Talks looks now compared to how it used to look, and that it's so much better, and you're so thankful that they stepped in and supported us and blessed everyone with high-resolution video, no matter if you watch on YouTube, on Facebook, or right here in the Zoom webinar. So dvestore.com, visit them. Guy and his team will help you get all set up. I think, Omar, you said earlier you got some gear coming from DVE Store. Is that right?
I do have some gear coming in. Hopefully I can show you guys some of that stuff in the next week or two. If you're interested this Wednesday on the podcast side, I will be dumbing out some of the stuff that we got from there. Some pieces came in today. Some pieces won't be here till Wednesday. So hopefully before then, it'll be interesting to see how I turn the camera around on itself to show you guys what's going on here. But I did get some stuff from them. It's coming in either tomorrow or Wednesday. But hopefully, if you guys want to tune in on Wednesday, we're going to be demoing out some stuff here we're trying to do to get back to the kind of our grassroots a little bit, showing some more behind the scenes stuff live when we're doing things. The team we're building out a package so that we can show you guys some more behind the scenes stuff live when we're doing them, give you guys like a real, nitty gritty there with us feel of what we're doing with some of these bigger shows that we got going on. Very cool.
So with that, I want to thank our panel tonight. Small panel, but very, very tons of information from Jef. Great questions from Andrew. Comments and questions from Iris. Justin, thanks for joining. I don't know we got too many of your questions tonight, but it sounded like you, from what I saw in the chat, you thought this was pretty interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share before we sign off. Maybe if you're there. I know. Justin, what you just told us because of the last week, you ended up ordering your Atomos, right?
I did. I'm going to give it a shot. I think I've kind of already used it on a show I did last week once, so it's just going to have many applications. So yeah, definitely very informative. And I was looking at those products, but not the one that I ended up getting. But thanks to last week, I was educated and made an informed purchase decision. At least I think. We'll see when it comes in tomorrow.
Great, and it's a pleasure to have you back, man. I know you were busy for a while, and it's great that you're back here with us again. 2 weeks in a row, so we'll keep a streak going, hopefully. But again, thank you to our panel. Thank you to Jef. It's always a pleasure to have you here, Jef.
Glad to be here, guys.
So much. And you and I still got to set a date, man. We got to get my cloud all set up so that I
Absolutely. I'm ready to do it when you are.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, I know you've been a bit busy with some tiny little shows here and there. So now maybe that those little things are done, you can focus on my needs. So
I'm ready for it.
That's great, man. So appreciate it, and we'll say goodnight to everybody on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll see you next week every Monday, 7 p.m. Right here on either Facebook, YouTube, or join us here on Zoom. You'll get some of the behind the scenes before we go live. We open the room about a half hour early. Never know what's going to happen, and usually we hang out afterwards. So when we say goodbye to you guys, we're still here hanging out. So come join us on Zoom, and we'll catch you next week. Night.